because my entire value was wrapped up in my productivity. If I wasn't needed, then what value did I have even to exist? You figure out where the ecstasy is coming from, and that gives you clarity on what it is that you want to do. Sit in that. Sit in that feeling of worthlessness. Sit in the failures. Sit in the depths of your depravity and just stare at it. In order to train your body and your nervous system especially on how to adapt and change and grow and evolve in that. So I got out of surgery. I did survive that. And because I had tested positive for COVID, I was stuck in the hospital room by myself. And it's when I learned how to meditate. And it's also when I learned I had to create boundaries with work. I was still going to conferences with my drains still in after my mastectomy and planning chemo around conferences. And I was just hell-bent and determined that I was just going to keep pushing. And it wasn't until I literally almost died that my doctor was like, you can't, what are you doing? You know, and that was a reality check that I was going to kill myself by pushing so hard because my ego wouldn't let myself not be needed somewhere.
And what about the concept of pushing that hard so that you can justify your existence as well?
Exactly. Because my entire value was wrapped up in my productivity. If I wasn't needed, then what value did I have even to exist? I had no sense of value, of personal self-worth. And understanding the difference between self-worth and value is also a fundamental shift. Your self-worth, you exist because everybody has that. You don't have to earn that. The value is whatever you bring to the matrix. What value are you bringing to the matrix, to other people in your community? That's how your value is determined. Your worth, we all have the same worth. Nobody is worth more than another, no matter what value they bring. And I think that's a fundamental shift in philosophy when it comes to just humanism and the interconnectedness of all of us in our families and in our relationships and in our society. You know, it's something that you have to really reckon with, because we use that term special all the time. And my mentor told me, you're not special. I'm like, what do you mean? I have actually a lot of evidence that I am very special. How many people thought I was very special? And he said, special is the wrong word. Special means better than. And you are not better than anyone. You're not worth more than anyone. And that was really humbling to hear. And now I hear it and feel it and see it everywhere.
But it's also going to be liberating because you're not worth any less than anyone.
That's exactly right. That's a perfect distinction. And I love that you talked about programming earlier, because I wanted to talk about that when you were speaking earlier about just the so many beliefs that we've inherited over generations, traumas that we've inherited in our bodies over decades and centuries, right? And a program is a collection of values, beliefs, states, and behavioral patterns which have been compiled into executable routines to run in a certain setting or context, to perform automatic and interactive tasks in order to benefit from the product of that interaction. And when you think about every interaction that you're having, where and what are you trying to benefit from? Even if it's an old pattern, like a toxic loop. Why do I always call that guy? Why am I always attracted to that girl?
Sure. What are you getting from it? What is it costing you? And it's
exactly.
a reaction. Yeah.
And if it's a comfortable toxic, right? You're still going to go to it every time because you know exactly, you're prepared. You know exactly what to do in that circumstance. But what's so hard is to do something that you've never done, because you don't know how that turns out. You don't know if you're equipped. And now you're creating uncertainty in your life. Well, that is where the power is. And so a lot of what my work is about creating moments of uncomfortability, of uncertainty, in order to train your body and your nervous system especially on how to adapt and change and grow and evolve in that circumstance. And it's so powerful because Now you're in the driver's seat going into the unknown, and you're not powerless in it. In fact, you're more sovereign and more autonomous than ever because you've now made the choice to do that thing and go that direction. One of the classes that I teach is called Religare, and Religare is a comparative religions class that really helps you identify what a religion does for a person. Because to your point, when you can answer these questions structurally, you have clarity in the way and the how you live your life. And that's a really powerful tool. So every religion has to answer to, where did I come from? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Right? And where am I going after? And when you can answer succinctly what your thoughts or beliefs are about that, you now navigate through life with more effectiveness. So what's a beautiful thing is it doesn't mean that it has to, so when in the Religare class, we talk about your nutrition label. And when you create your nutrition label on what are your answers to these fundamental questions, so that when you navigate through life, you have a definitive way, a definitive standard for which to live. And it's really empowering. And instead of having to define or let somebody else define those answers for you, it allows you, some clarity, because otherwise it's really easy to get lost in this existential loop of why am I here and what is my purpose? And you really do go, I certainly went through that whole existential crisis of why am I here after I was done with treatment? And that really was life-threatening because I couldn't answer that question. But you can never answer the question, who am I? Or why am I here? Because it's this, first of all, who, you can't be the subject, right? And the object at the same time. So there is no answer to who am I. And so anyway, that class gives you a lot of clarity on what are your answers so that you can move along. What are your sacraments, meaning what are you to do? How is it that you're supposed to live? What are the covenants? What are the agreements that you're making in order to get where you want to go? And when you have a clear sacrament, a clear covenant, a clear understanding of where I came from and where I'm going, now you can move just to navigation.
Yeah, I think I'm in a spot where I don't fully understand that for myself over the last few years as I've been getting further into this. My perspective on these things is that the universe is happening no matter what. My timeline is crashing through it. I don't know where my timeline is going right now. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in my timeline. You said something earlier about men just leaking away their power. That resonated.
Leaking their energy.
Yeah, leaking their energy. It immediately resonated. It's like, I know why I've chosen out of previous directions in my life. What is it exactly now that I think I'm supposed to be doing with it? And that's become very gray.
We should do the Religare course. Because it's not about me giving you answers to what those things are. It's about you constructing what the answers are. And it starts with a comparative analysis of different religions because that helps you understand, again, your programming, right? You start with whatever religion you grew up with, and then two other religions that you might want to know something about. And when you do that, you start to learn the structure and the framework for how a religion operates. And that's really powerful because then you can construct your own for yourself.
Sure. You're talking about, so I call this with my clients building their equation. We figure out what their equation is.
Yes.
Because the things that work for their bodies, all the different tools, all the things are tools. Veganism, vegetarianism, keto, fasting, all these things are tools. We figure out their equation, how all of those tools work best for them. And it sounds like they were talking about the exact same concept.
The exact same concept. It's your nutrition
topic.
label.
Yeah.
Right? And every religion offers three things. A source of grace. Every religion offers a transformation. First I was this, then I was this. I was lost, and then I was found. And then a sense of separateness. So a sense of belonging. I belong now to this congregation. I belong. They wouldn't let us join because joining felt good. Right? And so when you join that religion, it answers those questions for you. And so now you no longer have to try to answer those questions for yourself. The problem is if you don't have answers to those questions, it does slow you down because you don't have a GPS, right? And you can find yourself looping without realizing it. And it's not a matter of like, there's no, purpose that's going to come down and like shock you. And, it's you decide what you want it to be. And how do you do that? You spend significant time connecting within. That's why meditation is the core essence of everything that I do in every session. It's meditation and breathwork is the core of everything. Because when you go deep within, you move through the storm, you find that sense of joy, you figure out where the ecstasy is coming from, and that gives you clarity on what it is that you want to do. And that's the most magical choice that you can make, because again, it's not based on your ability, it's not based on your brilliance, it's not based on, some socioeconomic gift that you were given or passed down from generations of whatever, right? It is you choose what you want to do, then you become able to do that thing, and then you do. And it's a simple stack. Instead of judging yourself for, I just can't figure out why I'm so lost. I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know where I'm going. And these are existential questions that hit all of us. And usually it's around the point that we're sick of performing. It's usually around where the things that we're achieving aren't fulfilling us anymore. And we're like, what is it? We only want what we didn't have. Our goals, those goals and aspirations that come from a space of lack. I wanted a really powerful, strong, healthy, happy family because I didn't have that as a child. So that's all I wanted. I wanted success because I was poor as a child, right? I wanted to be loved and I wanted attention because I wasn't given that as a child. And when you can acknowledge, oh, what I want is only as a result of what my inner child didn't get, what if I could reparent my inner child in such a way that then I realize I could actually have or be anything I want. And if that's the case, what do I want that to be? And that's a really powerful place to come to, because then it's not based out of a sense of lack. You're not having to prove anything to anybody. This is what I want my day to look like, and so this is how I'm going to build my life. One of the things that I really learned in my cancer journey specifically was the deconstruction of everything that I thought I was, because I became helpless, right? I was no longer functional in my community. I was no longer functional in my role at work. I was no longer beautiful. I had no breasts. I had no hair. I was swollen, tired, cranky, right? Everything that people had valued about me was gone. And so you start to really question whether or not your life has any value. Why am I here? Why am I fighting so hard to live? Right? And that having to face your mortality in that way is just like waking up at 45 and looking around your apartment or your house or your perfectly curated life and being like, I built all of this. This is everything that I ever wanted. And guess what? It's not what I want at all. It's the same panic. We get more compassion for cancer because we didn't choose to walk into that storm, but it's not different. In fact, my year after finishing chemo was way worse than my year going through treatment. Because when I was going through treatment, I had steps. I knew what I needed to do. Maybe I didn't know if I was going to survive or not, but I knew what I needed to do in order to have the best chance at survival. When I finished chemo, 3 months after I finished chemo, I got a divorce. 3 months after that, I lost my job. And I found myself literally traveling the world, speaking at retreats because everybody was so inspired by my story. But on the inside, I felt like such a fraud. And in so many ways, I was. Because yes, I had survived this major pivot. And yes, I empowered myself through it. I was so lost. I was so confused. I had this nightmare recurring where I was saving people and I was getting them all out on a boat. And rescuing them from this island that was under attack. And I was taking these babies and these moms and all these families, and I was getting them on the boat. And we got away at sea, and we had finally gotten away from the war. And the storm comes in, and I'm above the sails on the boat. And I realize when I look down, there's nobody at the wheel. And I'm like, I am doing a dangerous thing, because how many women left really unhealthy relationships because they saw me do it and they were inspired by it, and I didn't have the right advice.
See, to me though, you're standing on top of the sails because you're looking out for what could happen, but you weren't steering your ship at all.
Exactly.
And that's, wow.
Exactly. Because I didn't know where I was going.
So to go back to what you were saying about after cancer, you're feeling unattractive, you're feeling cranky, you're feeling worthless. Do you think, and I'm asking, do you think that in that you came to the realization that you were defining yourself by these things, and once they were removed from you, you all of a sudden don't have the value that you thought you had previously? And then to that, you're now struggling to justify your existence because you were saying you were wondering why you're fighting so hard to survive when this is now your life. And so if you live a life where you're defining yourself by these parameters, and this is who I identify as, this is my story, this is my program, this is what I am, and then it gets stripped away from you, you're left feeling empty. And see, even in that, there's something for men to listen to, because we're constantly defining ourselves by our ego, by our job title, by our network, by our wealth. And if those things become removed, then we're lost and we're shattered.
Yeah.
How are you surviving that?
And that's where the work goes. That's where the work really begins. Like, sit in that. Sit in that feeling of worthlessness. Sit in the failures. Sit in the depths of your depravity and just stare at it. I can't fix the things that I did while I was blowing up my old life, right? I can't justify it. There's nothing to justify. One of the most powerful pieces of advice was really a permission, was that forgiveness is when you realize that there's nothing to forgive. And because of forgiveness requires a condemner. And who has the authority to condemn you?
I'm sure you've probably heard people talking about peptides. It piqued your interest, you looked into it, but you don't know what source to trust. A lot of this stuff is coming out of China. If you're looking for a good quality peptide that's made in the United States, go to helixpure.com.